Sofushka. The Witch's Granddaughter. Story, Mysticism. The house was buzzing with whispers and arguments from the very morning, when Agata Leopoldovna was getting ready for the trip. Viktor Markovich was brewing strong tea, looking anxiously at his wife, and Alia was fussing around her mother, putting a thermos and sandwiches into a travel bag. "Mom, maybe we shouldn't leave so early. The roads are slippery after yesterday's rain," said the daughter, adjusting her mother's scarf. "Olechka, a girl is waiting for me. You understand, she is all alone in the world. How can I delay?" Agatha kissed her daughter on the forehead and took the car keys. Misha stuck his head out of the room, not quite awake yet. "Is it true, they say she's kind of creepy? The kids at school told me all sorts of things." "Misha." Alia snapped at him. "Don't listen to that gossip. The girl has been through so much grief, and now you." Luda, Agatha's sister, silently crossed herself at the icon in the corner and whispered something under her breath. Viktor noticed this gesture and frowned. "Luda, enough with these signs. The child was left an orphan. What kind of superstitions can there be here? And you, Vitya, in vain speak so frivolously," said Luda. "In the village they don't say that for no reason. The whole family died, and she pretended that nothing had happened. She stood on the balcony and watched the house burn." Agatha turned sharply to her sister. "Luda, I beg you, don't say a word about this in front of the girl. She's suffered enough. And if you start scaring her with your rumors..." "What am I saying? I'm not saying anything. It's all somehow strange. There's probably a reason for it." Alia sighed and hugged her aunt by the shoulders. "Aunt Lyad, why are you working yourself up? Sofushka was just lucky, the balcony was on the other side of the house, so she didn't suffocate. And the family, well, apparently, that's how God arranged it." Misha snorted and started stroking his cat, purring loudly and closing his eyes with pleasure. Viktor finished his tea and kissed his wife goodbye. "Agatha, be careful on the road. And don't listen to all this nonsense. Bring the girl. The house is big, there's enough room for everyone." "Yeah, I'll try. And don't quarrel here without me." Agatha smiled and went out into the yard. In the small village of Berezovka, Sophia's house was always avoided. Not because the family was unfriendly, no. Her father worked as a machine operator on a collective farm, her mother ran the household, and her three brothers helped around the yard. The locals treated Sophia's grandmother, Ustinya Yegorovna, with caution. The old woman knew a lot about herbs, could remove warts and ward off the evil eye, and often predicted the weather and harvest day by day. The villagers were afraid of her piercing gaze and strange conversations with cats, who obeyed the grandmother as if bewitched. "There's definitely something wrong with this Ustinya," the women whispered at the well. "Do you remember how she treated the Petrov's cow? She whispered for 3 days, and then the cow got up and walked, although she was barely breathing. And do you remember how she told Maria from the neighboring village about her husband? She said that in the fall she would leave you and go to another woman. And that's what happened." Sophia grew up next to her grandmother, learned from her to collect medicinal roots and listen to nature. The girl was calm, thoughtful, could sit for hours by the river or in the forest, watching birds and animals. But 6 months ago, Ustinya Yegorovna died in her sleep, and something incomprehensible began to happen to Sophia. The girl withdrew into herself, stopped playing with the neighbors' children, and her gaze became absent and tense at the same time. Her parents attributed this to internal experiences, but fellow villagers began to notice oddities. First, the neighbors' chickens began to die. Then the Makarov's barn caught fire, although no one was smoking nearby and there was no electricity. The headman's house caught fire next, and a week later, 2 more houses on the other side of the village. "Something's wrong in Berezovka," people said as they packed their things. "It's better to get away from trouble." Many did so, leaving the village half empty. And on that fateful night, the neighbors were awakened by the sound of a fire engine siren. By morning, only charred logs and ashes remained of Sophia's house, and she was the only one alive in the family. The girl was found on the second-floor balcony, sitting on the railing and looking at the smoldering coals. There was not a scratch on her, not even her hair was singed. When Agatha returned home in the evening, the streetlights were already on. The car pulled into the parking lot, and the woman turned off the engine. She helped a thin girl in a dark coat out of the salon. The girl had long brown hair and big gray eyes that seemed too mature for a 16-year-old girl. Silhouettes flickered in the windows of the house. The household members did not take their eyes off her. The curtains immediately drew, as if no one was peeping. "Well, here we are, my dear," said Agatha, taking a small suitcase out of the trunk. "Now you will meet everyone. I will show you your room." Sophia nodded silently and followed her aunt to the porch. Viktor Markovich met them at the threshold. "Come in, come in. Sophia, right? Call me Uncle Vitya. Come in, don't be shy." Alia loomed behind the man, waving her hand to the girl. "Hi, Sonechka. I'm Alia. Mom and I prepared a room for you. Everything is new there, bed linen, towels." Misha stuck his head out from behind his sister and stared at Sophia with undisguised curiosity. And Luda stood in the depths of the corridor, tightly clutching a home cross in her hands. "Luda, let's go and meet her," Agatha called her. "This is my sister, she also lives here." The woman reluctantly approached and extended her hand to Sophia. "Ludmila Leopoldovna. I am very, very sorry for your grief, my dear." Sophia shook the extended hand, but did not say a word. Misha decided to break the awkward silence. "Are you mute? Or do you just not want to talk to us?" "Misha." Mom snapped. "What kind of questions?" "What?" "I just asked. There's one in our class, always silent, thinks he's the smartest." Sophia slowly turned her head to the boy and looked at him so that he immediately fell silent. There was something in her gaze that made Misha catch his breath, and his eyes suddenly filled with tears. "Mom." He sobbed and ran to his room. "Oh, what's wrong with him?" Agatha worried. "Sorry, Sonechka, the boy is still little, he doesn't understand." Viktor put his hand on his wife's shoulder. "Don't worry. The child is stressed after everything she's been through. She needs time to adapt. Show her the room, let her rest from the road." Luda still kept a suspicious look at Sophia, and the girl, standing in the middle of the corridor and looking at the fires in the fireplace, seemed not to notice all this. The next morning Misha woke up and couldn't find his cat. It was as if Kubik had disappeared, which was completely unlike him. The ginger cat never left the house for long. "Mom, maybe Kubik fell into the basement. Or got into the barn and couldn't get out," the boy asked at breakfast. "We'll find you when you get back from school," promised Alia, spreading jam on bread. "Maybe he went to the neighbors, cats like to walk." Sophia sat at the table and drank tea in silence. Agatha tried to get her niece to talk. "Sonechka, maybe you can tell me how things are at school. What subjects did you like the most?" The girl looked at her aunt, but said nothing. "Don't worry," Viktor reassured his wife. "The doctor said that after such a shock, children sometimes temporarily lose the power of speech. It will pass, you just need to be patient." After breakfast, Sophia, like the day before, went to the fireplace and froze in front of it, gazing enchanted at the dancing tongues of flame. She could stand like that for hours, without moving and without taking her eyes off the fire. Luda watched the girl from the kitchen and crossed herself every now and then. While the household was busy with their own affairs, she decided to approach Sophia. "Listen, girl," the woman said quietly, taking a small bottle out of her pocket. I don't know what's on your mind, but I feel something bad. I won't remain silent and wait for trouble. Luda sprinkled Sophia with holy water. The girl shuddered and turned around. That's how it is. If you are thinking of something bad, then know that I am not one of those who should be feared. God will protect me from all evil. Sophia looked closely at the woman, then turned back to the fireplace. A barely noticeable smile flickered on her lips. The next day, Luda decided to go into the forest to pick mushrooms. After the rains, porcini mushrooms were supposed to appear. She took a basket and walked along a familiar path. An hour later, neighbors heard her screams. The woman was lying in a ravine with a broken leg and could not get out on her own. Did she trip? Asked the ambulance doctor, putting a handcuff on her. No. I was walking as usual, and then something seemed to push me. Or so it seemed to me, Luda answered, confused. A week later, Agatha and Victor had to urgently go to the city. The editorial office had problems. Advertisers were delaying payments. Alia, you're in charge now. Keep order, said the mother, putting the documents in a folder. We'll need to stay in the city for about 3 days until we sort out this mess. Of course, Mom. Be stricter with Misha. And keep an eye on Sophia, the girl hasn't settled in yet. Vitya loaded the bags into the car and hugged his son. Mishka, you are the only man here. Help your sister, listen to her. And don't tease Sophia, she had a hard time. Dad, when will you be back? In 3 days at the most. The family saw their parents off, and the house became quieter. Alia was cooking dinner, Misha was doing his homework, Luda was lying in her room with a plastered leg and reading a prayer book. And Sophia, as always, was standing by the fireplace. Night fell on the house earlier than usual. The sky was covered with clouds, and at 6 in the evening it was already dark. Alia put her brother to bed, checked if the front door was locked, and went to her room. Luda took a painkiller and also fell asleep. Only Sophia was not asleep. She was still standing in the living room and watching the logs burn out in the fireplace. When the clock struck midnight, the girl finally woke up. She slowly walked up the stairs to the second floor and quietly opened the door to Luda's room. The woman was sleeping on her side, wrapped in a blanket, and her plastered leg was lying on a pillow. Sophia silently entered the room and stopped by the bed, examining the sleeping woman. Then she quietly left and went to Alia's room. The girl was fast asleep. Next was Misha's room. The boy was snoring in his sleep, his arms spread out. On the nightstand next to the bed lay a photograph of a ginger cat. Sophia went around all the bedrooms and then went down to the living room. There she went to a large mirror in a carved frame and looked at her reflection for a long time. Gradually, a second face began to appear in the mirror, wrinkled, with sunken cheeks and gray hair. Grandmother Ustinya looked at her granddaughter from behind the mirror. "It's time, dear," said the old woman. "I need them. Every single one of them." Sophia nodded and took a box of matches from her pocket. She lit the first match near the curtains, the second near the bookshelf. The flame danced joyfully across the dry wood and fabric. The girl methodically walked through the rooms of the first floor, setting fire to everything that could burn. The flame quickly grew, rising to the ceiling and spreading to the second floor. Agatha and Victor were driving home at dawn. Things in the city had settled down faster than expected. The mood was upbeat. "You know, Vitya, it seems to me that Sofushka is gradually getting better. Yesterday, when I called Alia, she said that the girl had already started to smile a little. Of course. Children adapt quickly, especially when they feel cared for and loved. The main thing is that we didn't abandon her." The phone rang when there were about 10 kilometers left to the house. Victor looked at the screen, an unfamiliar number. "Yes, I'm listening. This is the fire department duty officer speaking. There is a fire in your house. The phone fell out of Victor's hands. Agatha looked at her husband and understood everything without words. The car abruptly turned off the road and sped along a country road, raising clouds of dust behind it. When they pulled up to the house, there was almost nothing left. Firefighters were putting out the last fires, and neighbors were gathered around. The air smelled of burning and something unbearably sweet. Agatha jumped out of the car and ran to the ruins. Children. Where are my children? Alia. Misha. Victor tried to hold her back, but the woman broke free and ran to the firefighters. Tell me, are they alive? Tell me. The guard commander took off his helmet and shook his head. Woman, calm down. We are still clearing the rubble, but the fire was very strong. Smoke, people could have suffocated in their sleep, not realizing the danger. No, it can't be. Agatha fell to her knees right in the ashes. Oh God, why? Victor hugged his wife and also began to cry. The neighbors stood at a distance, not knowing how to help them. After a while, a young fireman approached them. Sorry, there, in the car, we found one survivor. Agatha and Victor raised their heads with hope. Who did they find? The girl. She was sitting on the porch when we arrived. The couple rushed to the fire truck. Sophia was sitting by the open door. Her dark coat was clean, there was no trace of soot on her face, and her hair was neatly done. Agatha and Victor ran up to their niece and hugged her so tightly, as if they were afraid that she would disappear too. Sonia, my dear, how good that you are alive. Agatha exclaimed, kissing the girl on the forehead. How good that the Lord at least left you to us. Victor stroked Sophia's hair and quietly repeated, Thank God, thank God. At least one remained. The firefighters were gathering their tools, the neighbors were gradually leaving, but Agatha and Victor still couldn't let the girl go. As if they wanted to make sure that she was real, alive, warm. Sophia stood motionless between them, looking over their heads at the smoking ruins of what had been a home yesterday. Not a muscle moved on her face, her eyes empty and cold as the autumn sky. The wind carried the ashes across the yard, and the sweet smell of burning still hung in the air.